Hey everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Oh, what's happening, Rush Nation? Welcome to a special Monday night show. I say special because it was supposed to be maybe Friday, then Saturday. It wasn't Sunday, so we've now made Monday. We're a week late. I apologise. Murph left me in charge, which is always a bad idea. I needed to organise a show. As soon as Murph told me, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. It just took a little while to get it. If you are watching on the live stream and you are an OG, or you've read the description to the video, you will notice we have one of the founding members of 5 Yard College with me. Ash, it has been a hot minute, my friend. How are you?
It has been a good while. I am doing very well. I'm glad to be back. Yeah, took a few days to get there, but we got there, and I'm very excited to be back. It's been a couple of years, I think now. Time has flown by.
It sure has. For those of you that are new to the pod and don't know Ash, he is an avid Pittsburgh Steelers, or I should say Pittsburgh Fighters fan now, and a Buckeye fan. And we've got to that point, Ash, in fantasy season. I don't know about you. I don't know how many drafts you're in or what you've got gone on, what you've got going on, what you've still yet to come, because we are at that time of the season. But I have done countless drafts. I'm in, I think, 4 at the moment. I know I've got a couple more to go. It is a lot right now, right?
Yeah, this time of year is always crazy for NFL drafts, in particular. Fantasy drafts, I'm not in that many this year. I've sort of been cutting back gradually. I've got 2 or 3 long-standing ones that I'm in for NFL only, and then I have got a couple of college ones. I've got a college to campus one, which is its whole beast in itself, that I literally just finished the college side of the draft. So we did the NFL draft and there was nobody to take, so that lasted all 2 rounds. But yeah, we're hot in that season at the moment, which is always fun and stressful in equal measure.
Yeah, it is a lot. So we thought, what better way to drop draft season on its head right now and not worry about who we're drafting now, but let's have a look at the people we're going to be drafting next year, or some of the people we're going to be drafting next year, because you and I both know, Ash, that we get to this point of the season, this guy is the new hotness, and then come next year, he's not.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always 2 or 3 that shoot up that no one's expecting, and there's always a dud that is the hot topic at the time, and then it gets to draft day and absolutely plummeted and is irrelevant. But
yeah, I mean, we could point to DJ Uiagalelei, who I don't even know if he's still in college now. I think was last year his last year. It was that far of a drop off when he came out with Bryce Young. We thought these two were going to be hot stepping all the way to the number 1 pick with Clemson and Alabama, and then it just wasn't. And that's how quickly these things change.
Yeah, I mean, he dropped like a rock. He is still around. I do believe he's got 1 more year he's doing in Florida State. What his decision will be
Florida
after
State?
that. He is at Florida State now, yeah.
Well, we saw what a good year at Florida State did for Travis Hunter, so
That's very true.
Yeah. So this is going to be. So we started talking, Ash and I, and Ash got very excited and said, "I'll put a doc together," which pleased me greatly because he was sipping on Moretti somewhere in Italy, and I thought this is perfect. Ash knows far more about this than I do. He can start the doc, and then the doc evolved, and it had, I don't know, pretty much. How many colleges are there in school now? Teams in college, 126, and they've got like 6,000 players each. Basically, it was a Bible, and then Ash decided very last minute to cut it down, which was probably the right thing to do. Otherwise, this could have been, one of those streamathons.
We could have been sat here for hours. I think at one point I had 36 different players that I thought, oh yeah, we can talk about them. And then I quickly realised I remember doing this a few years ago and how quickly it transcended and got its mind of its own. So I reined it in, and I've picked up some specific players that most people, I'm assuming, will know about.
Well, I think we get players like Marvin Harrison Jr. last year who has yet to step onto an NFL field. Right, he was the player of the 2024 draft. Everybody knew about him because of A, how good he is, but B, because of his father, where he played. But I think there's some players that we're going to talk about in a little bit that people just won't have heard of. And they could potentially, and this is going to be a really, people will come at me and stuff, and they'll be like, well, you said this guy was going to be the number one at this position a year ago. But exactly, it was a year ago, and we had no idea what was going to happen between now and then. You know, Christmas will come, death and taxes, NFL prospect, not guaranteed.
No, not at all. I mean, some of these could be not irrelevant, but could drop like a stone in 3 months' time. Like it happens that quickly in college. One thing or another, injuries, discipline, someone steps up. It's a difficult beast to tame, and that is why we love it so much.
Yeah, I mean, even transfers. You didn't mention transfers, Ash. You're one transfer away from absolutely irrelevant.
Transfers. Just my head hurts when I look at transfers every year because there's always hundreds of them. Some very surprising, and we'll get onto one later, and some that you expect to happen that don't and decommit. Honestly, like we could sit here for hours. Those of you that remember the college pod that we used to have, we could sit here for hours. And talk college football.
And that was when it was simple and you could only transfer once. You know, now you could just keep transferring.
As many times as you want. You can decommit. I think there was I can't remember his name, but this summer there's someone who is committed to 3 different colleges in the transfer portal and then ended up back at his original school. So yeah, it's all over the place now.
Yeah, it doesn't help at all. I mean, you think we're sort of veterans of this now. Well, we've retired basically, and back when NIL wasn't a deal, transferring wasn't a deal, conferences were pretty set. You know, the Big 12 and all of that, Big 10, teams were teams, and now it's just super conference. It's madness. College football is a whole new beast from when we did this before, Ash. So the fact we're diving back into a year's time, we're not only we're going a whole hog. Ash, do you want to start at the quarterback position, or should we do the skill position? Because that could take us an hour, and the quarterbacks potentially aren't as important for fantasy. Or do you want to start at the quarterbacks?
I do think running back and wide receiver, the class for 2025 is looking exceptional, and the quarterback class is not, in my opinion. It's entirely up to you. We can go for the more fantasy relevant ones to start with, or we can quickly go over the quarterbacks and be done with it. I'm easy.
All right, well, let's talk quarterback then, because we've only got 3 on this list. Talking of the list, we're going to digress. This pod is definitely going to be long, Rush Nation. I can only apologise for that. Ash put his list together, and I had my list. Then I went to look at Ash's final list, and of the top 3 positions at running back and wide receiver, they're basically the same. We've got a couple of flip-flops on the running back, but they're essentially the same when you get to listen to how we put them together. And Ash's text was, get out of my head. And I'm thinking, we haven't done this for 2 years, but we are straight back to it. It's like hot stuff. We haven't missed a step. So I'm going to read the 3 quarterbacks' names out, Ash, in the order you've got them on the dock. And then we can just talk about pros and cons of each and what we think is going to happen. And then we'll get quarterbacks in, we'll get them out, and then we'll get to the positions that really matter. So at 1, you've got Carson Beck, Georgia. He's a senior. At 2, Shedeur Sanders, Colorado, also a senior. And then Quinn Ewers, Texas, he's a junior. So, I mean, he is a junior. Does that first season that he had Quinn Ewers at Ohio State when he did the $1 million car deal and then ran away quickly because they had every quarterback in the sun, under the sun, does that count as a year, or did he redshirt?
He redshirted that year, so yeah, it doesn't count. So he's still in his junior year.
So we'll start with Quinn Ewers as we talked about him. Do you think being a junior he's going to declare, or is there a potential that he has one more year?
Quinn Ewers is a really tough one because I don't think he has really excelled as much as people thought he would at Texas. Now, the quite obvious thing in the background for him now is obviously Arch Manning, who is now there, and he is one potentially mistake or injury away from Manning going, all right, cool, this is my house now. That may push him to have a good season and declare, or it could push him right out the door early, not in terms of like his starting position. I think he will keep the position as long as he stays healthy and doesn't make any drastic mistakes throughout the year, and I do think he will declare, because I don't think he's going to keep Arch Manning out for 2 years, and he'll just essentially waste his senior year if he goes back. In my opinion, I think this is it for him, and he needs a good year.
Yeah, this is basically do or die, isn't it? Because he's, like you say, he's got Arch Manning coming out behind me, and he can't afford another year because then he will have to transfer, do another year, and then could be sticky situation where he goes then. And if he has a bad year and doesn't transfer but commits, then his draft stock takes an absolute hammering. So this is the Quinn Ewers year. If he's going to have one, what we thought was going to happen out of high school, this has to be the mullet year. This has to be the year that,
And the mullet's gone. There's no mullet anymore. He doesn't have it. Yeah. He's scrapped the mullet off. He's serious now. He's in serious mode. But obviously, the Arch Manning and the Ohio State aside, obviously he came into college football as the number 1 overall recruit and quarterback in that 2021 class, I think it was.
Yeah, because he had 2 years.
Yeah. It was 2021. I've got it right in front of me. I don't know why I was unsure. But the process, he's got a good team around him from a Texas point of view. Obviously, the wide receivers and the running backs are strong. I like the offense that's run there. From a personal pro point of view for Quinn Ewers, arm talent, that is the biggest factor for him, and it was when he came out of high school. This guy can make pretty much any throw that you want on the field, including throws on the run. His decision making is up there with anybody on his day. I think it has taken a knock last year. As I said, he's dealt with injuries the last 2 years, which hasn't helped him at all. Obviously, the red shirt in Ohio, which he may or may not have expected as a freshman, but obviously you come out as the big dog, you expect to play. He's gone back to his home state, Texas, and yeah, it's not gone as well as one might have hoped last year. I think the highlights of him and the thing that's probably kept him up within the Texas organization is the Big 12 championship game. I think that was probably his best game last year, and obviously saved it right to the end. And then the loss to Washington in the college semifinals, he wasn't amazing, but I don't think he made too many mistakes. And that was a close game. They were obviously a score away from winning and going through to the final. I think he turned it on towards the end of the season, which will hopefully give him confidence for this season. The fact that he's healthy, the fact that he ended the season well, and he is just an overall confident guy. And I think he's going to bring that into this season, I hope, for Texas, and potentially elevate him, because we'll get onto the other guys that you mentioned. But this draft class, as I said, as a whole for QB is just not shining for me. There isn't really a standout that I'm liking at the moment. That's why this was so difficult, and obviously not as focused for me at the moment in this draft class.
Yeah. What do you think he needs to do to potentially become the number 1 quarterback in this class? Can Ewers have the year to be the number 1?
Yeah, absolutely. Consistency is the main thing. He can make all the throws that you need from a top-level quarterback, but he is inconsistent at times. He wants to make the big splash play as a confident man, a confident quarterback does, but sometimes he makes mistakes from that. He tries to throw too much into tight coverage. He doesn't go for the easy passes that are there. He ignores the easy routes that he could take for those easy downs and yardage, and goes for the big-time plays that sometimes come back and bite him. If he can get that consistency in his game, and I think if he can stay fit, it should push him up, as long as the guys around him aren't having exceptional years. He's very close. This 1, 2, and 3 are very close to me, and there's also a couple of guys that I haven't even included that are a good season away from also being in that conversation.
Fair. All right, let's talk about number 1 then. Carson Bank, as we mentioned, Georgia. What does he have that for you right now that Quinn Ewers doesn't?
He is the most well-rounded for me. He is the most NFL ready, I want to say. The size, he's got the physicals that you want for a quarterback at the next level. He's 6'4", 215 plus. He's got really good accuracy in the short to mid game. When he is playing that short to mid game and making those plays, the ball placement that he gives to his receivers, 9 times out of 10 is on point, exactly where the receiver needs it to be. His throwing mechanics and the way he releases the ball are really solid, above average. And just his overall gameplay is solid for me. He doesn't jump out as a big-time exceptional playmaker. He does everything really well. There's a really good comparison that I have from a play point of view at the next level, and that's that we saw at college, and that's Mac Jones. Now, obviously, from a fantasy point of view and potentially at the next level, it isn't overly exciting. And that is something I do want to caveat. Beck is my number one quarterback, but from a fantasy perspective, maybe not. But in terms of an actual QB1 for the 2025 class, I can't look past Beck at the moment. I think the cons and the things that need to be improved in his game, there is a lot less than there is with the other guys around him.
Do you think then we saw CJ Stroud come out, former Buckeye, let's just mention that. We saw CJ Stroud come out and be just an electric passer, use the pocket, make the throws that were needed, find his guys, and then we see the other side of that with the Anthony Richardsons and stuff. It seems to me now that NFL teams either want an extreme dual threat or a player that can pick people apart. For me, there is no middle ground anymore. It is either A or B from what I've seen recently. And do you think that the third quarterback we've got here, Shedeur Sanders, is the most electric of the three when it comes to athleticism?
I would say so, yes. Now, I don't think people should look at Sanders as that bona fide dual threat quarterback, because he is not that, and at the moment at least anyway. However, he is probably the most exciting in terms of the plays that he can make with his arm and also with his feet when he needs to. And I do think if people are going to look at upside and potential stardom, shall we say, in the NFL, Sanders is probably the guy to look at, not only because of the way that he plays and his ability, but just his overall swagger and confidence that he has, that, let's be honest, probably comes a lot from his dad. Being around his dad, we all know what prime time was like back as a player and now as a coach as well. That's certainly rubbing off on him and is obviously going to help with the transition to the NFL when he gets there. And he's got the most potential for me, but he has also got the most boom or bust outlook, if you know what I mean. He's
always scared me far too much than impressed me. And that is, for me, the consistency of that not being, he's consistently scary. And that concerns me.
It's really weird with Sanders because he is a very, very intelligent quarterback. He has got high-level football IQ that you expect from a quarterback at the college level and that you would like to see as a prospect for the NFL level. The way he can identify defensive pressures, pre-snap audibles, ability to read the field, transition through his plays, at times is absolutely fantastic. But then there's also times where he doesn't think as much as he should do. He goes for the splashy play. He sits in the pocket way, way too much for my liking. He takes probably the most unnecessary sacks and hits that I've seen in college. I don't think that definitely doesn't come down to him being confident with his receivers or his offense. I don't know why. I can't put my finger on the reason why. I think he's just that confident in himself that he just sits there until he's ready to throw the ball. And just I'm worried for him at the next level if he doesn't get out of that, because he cannot sit in the pocket as long as he does at the college level.
Especially when we see players like Joe Burrow take so many hits and he isn't sitting in the pocket, he is just being rocked by top level defenders. That extra time, the extra time that the college game gives you, especially at Colorado, is not available. Yeah. And I worry that he's going to get, it's just going to be too much too quick.
He will get blasted if he's not careful. Especially because, let's be honest, if he goes in the round one, which I think he will, I'm not 100% sold on it yet, but we all know that multiple quarterbacks 9 times out of 10 in an NFL draft are going to be taken round one. He's not going to land on the most ideal situation for a quarterback with a good offensive line in front of him. And if he starts day one and isn't ready, he's going to take a lot of hits.
This is going to sound really. I was really pleased that Denver took Bo Nix, or basically any quarterback in the last draft, because I could see us moving anywhere to get Shedeur Sanders. We keep him in Colorado near his dad. And I'm thinking, this is not what Denver needs. We do not need Shedeur Sanders. So let's go, Bo, baby. Let's have a decent first year, please.
Yeah, he's a prospect, certainly. At the moment, anyway, this year he could step up drastically and be ready for the NFL. I think it will take a lot. He's definitely in the right environment for that to happen. Out of everybody here, he's in one of the most ideal situations with with the way that with the way that his dad has been coaching the team and the staff around him as well. Pat Shermer is now the offensive coordinator there. He's taken a step up this year, and he's now the offensive OC, which I do think will help Sanders in the long run this season and potentially ready for the next level. But he certainly needs to improve and is a boom or bust quarterback if I've ever seen one.
Yeah. Right. That's it. Quarterback's gone out the way.
Yeah.
We might mention some names later on if we've got some time, but really quarterbacks don't matter really unless you're playing Superflex. So let's talk about the one position. I say one. Let's talk about the position everybody clamours after in that first round in their fantasy draft. The rookie running back. Everybody wants that big, shiny new toy. And we're going to be talking about somebody first who plays on a blue field, Ash.
He does play on a blue field, yeah, and he is a group of 5 running back. That's Ashton Genty from Boise State.
Wait, stop there, Ash. Stop right there.
Stop. Okay.
So, of this class, if you'd have gone back, we'd have done this last year. Our running back one in this year's class would have been Travion Henderson. Well, my running back one would have been Travion Henderson, and I had him there until I did some more research after me and you decided we were going to stoke the fire once again.
Yeah.
If these guys were coming out in the draft we've just seen, of the first 3 running backs we've got here, would you have taken any of them ahead of Jonathan Brooks, who went to Carolina for fantasy this year?
It's a tough one.
I mean, injury aside, because obviously,
yeah. Ignoring the injury, just in terms of ability and production, I think yes, I probably would, and there's probably a couple that I would, based on this exact moment. Out of everybody else, Brooks is probably the only one that will be in the conversation for me out of the 24 class with quite a few of these guys that are coming through in 25.
Yeah, I think I'd have had the 4 guys that we're going to mention. I would have had all of them over Brooks, and I think I definitely would have had them all over Brooks, just because I think this RB class is. I don't think there is a Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott kind of elite talent, but the next tier down, I think there's 3 or 4 guys that potentially could all be severely good for fantasy.
There's more than that, I think. Really, if we this is a deep running back class at this stage of the year. This is a deep running back class. We're going to be focusing on 3, potentially 4. There is easily another. I could give you 5 or 6 names. Not NFL draft first rounds, and obviously some of these won't be because we know running backs are undervalued in the NFL draft. But from a fantasy perspective, yeah, this is a crazy class for running backs, in my opinion.
I can't see any of the 3/4 guys. We're going to talk about 4 because you haven't got Travion Henderson on your top 3 list, whereas I would have him at 2, flip-flop with the guy we're going to mention.
Yeah.
I don't see any of these running backs going. I think they're all going to go mid to late second and further on. I can't see them. Which is a shame because, like you said, they are undervalued. But yeah, so at 1 we've got Ashton Genty. Boise State. If you didn't know, Boise State do play on a ridiculously luminous blue field. Go look it up because it is crazy and actually hurts your eyes. He wasn't my one until I thought, actually, this guy he's a 3-down back. He does everything very well. He doesn't do anything in an elite category, I don't think. But then there isn't anything he does poorly. He even pass pros really, really well. And he isn't just the sort of get my body in the way kind of guy. He actually knows what he's doing. He can chip block, he can get to the outside, he can use his hands. He does everything really well. He just doesn't do anything elite. And I think he's taken a huge knock because A, he doesn't do anything that is outstanding, and B, he plays for Boise. So the level of competition isn't quite as good.
Yeah, and that's one of the main factors that people do look at the fact that he isn't in a Power 4 team. He is obviously in the group of 5 at Boise State. So he doesn't essentially face those elite college defenses that you see week in, week out, as some of that some of these other guys do. That is, of course, going to be a concern. It's always a concern when it comes to the next level, these group of 5 players. But as you said, he does everything well. The main thing for me, as you say, he is dual threat. He is good with his hands. He's good on the ground. He makes defenders miss for fun at times. The way that he moves around on the field, the way he can change direction with his speed and agility is great. And he also then adds into that the balance he has for a guy his size. So he's 5'9", 215 pounds. So he's a smaller back, but he is a compact, weak running back. He makes defenders, he embraces contact. He'll look for contact. And because his balance and his low center of gravity are so good at this level, the defenders will just bounce off of him, or they won't be able to bring him down straight away. So his yards after contact at the college level so far has been really good. And I think it will be again this year. He's durable. I have a concern that he plays a lot. He has played over 370. He's had over 370 carries in 2 years for Boise State. He hasn't missed any time because of injury. He has been the main guy for the last 2 years at Boise State in terms of running backs. That is a slight concern because obviously he's going to have a lot of he's obviously going to have a lot of downs on his legs by the time this season finishes, and that's always a concern for a running back, the longevity that they'll have at the next level. But as it stands, it doesn't seem to have impacted him yet, and I hope that continues.
Yeah. Interestingly, Ash, you do have a concern of yours on his pass protection. So everything I've seen from blocking I think is pretty good, but you've got a concern.
Yeah, and it's a slight concern. I was looking for areas of concern in his tape, and probably because I played obviously in the UK, but I did play as an offensive lineman for my local team, NFL team or American football team, should I say? You do notice it a little bit more. So what I have noticed from him is that he can overextend because obviously of his size, and when he's coming up against a big defensive lineman or an edge rusher, he has a habit of overextending and being out leveraged because he doesn't have that arm length, and the strike at times into the chest that you want to see. So from the initial impact that you want to see to push and get your leverage on a defender, that isn't always there. And then there are times that obviously he does miss blocks, which you see from running backs. Running backs are needed to block, but it's of course not their main game. But it's minor. It's something that he can improve on. He needs to learn a little bit more how to use his body and the lack of arm length and a little bit of strength that he has overall to be able to out leverage a defender.
Yeah, if you're not watching live right now, Rush Nation, you definitely need to be watching live because Ash demonstrated how to use your hands when blocking, and you can't get that gold when you're listening on the podcast. So do head over to YouTube, hit the bell and subscribe button, and you can catch all of this video gold that you're missing just getting the audio version. So at 2, we got Quinshon Judkins, Ohio State. He is a transfer. He came over from Ole Miss, where he was the dude. And do you think, explain this one to me, Ash? What's happening here?
I can't explain. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know what his decision making was to go to. Well, I think the reason with the being is, of course, obviously it's Ohio State. We should, I'd say the royal we should be competing again for the playoffs this year and for the Big Ten title. That is going to give him more exposure than he may potentially see at Ole Miss. Of course, obviously Ole Miss are in the SEC anyway, so it's still a big conference, but he should be one of the guys at one of the contenders for the college playoffs. That's probably been his thought process in this. And he may have seen the backfield this year as well. Obviously, we'll get onto him, but Trayvon Henderson is there. There's not much else at the moment around him. There's young guys, there's guys who haven't had much work at the moment, and Henderson has been injured. So he's probably looking at this and going, well, I can go there and I'll walk in and be the starter. Easy. And then I'm on one of the biggest programs in college football in my final year.
Yeah. Okay, well, I would have Henderson here and not Judkins because although Judkins is good with his hands out the backfield, I think he caught his most caught passes in a game last year was 3.
Yeah.
So whilst he is good, he isn't he's not a target for me as a running back. He's more of an escape dump off option, or I just think Henderson offers more in the receiving game than Judkins does, but they are very, very different running backs. You can talk about Judkins, and then I'll tell you why I like Henderson over him.
Yeah, you are right. Judkins and Henderson are different running backs. Judkins, for me, is one of more those bulldozer-type running backs. He's not afraid, and at times he looks for contact with a defender.
Go on. I heard. I was listening to a podcast about the class earlier in the week, and the guy said he's going to hit a hole, he's going to hit a defender, he's going to hit the back of his offensive lineman. It doesn't matter what it is, but something will get hit on every play.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone will get hit on every play, and if it's a defender, he's going to break those tackles a lot and get those extra yards because of it. Because he is he's 6 foot. Obviously, he's a bit taller than Genty. He's 220 pounds, but he's got one of those compact running back sizes, like a bowling ball. He's going to go through people. He's going to go through those gaps, and he's going to take hits. But he rarely loses momentum. He is a unit for a back his size. He's really difficult to bring down. But on the flip side of that, he does have that burst and that speed and agility to get through those gaps and exploit them, to make a defender miss. And it's the work in the tight spaces for me that I really like from Judkins. And I am very glad he's on the program, because I think him as a 1-2 combo with Henderson is just going to be a benefit for us. It's going to obviously protect Henderson, that we know has injury concerns and injury history.
Yep.
It can only be a good thing for Ohio. It remains to be seen how much of a good thing it will be for Judkins and Henderson's value, which has impacted Henderson's more so. Judkins has come up for me and Henderson has dropped down.
Yeah, I think we spoke about this yesterday afternoon when we were texting about it, and the next guy we've got Ollie Gordon from Oklahoma State at 3, and you and I both said, well, he could potentially be 1 or 2. Like it's really, really difficult. And if Henderson is fit and has a good season, and Judkins doesn't get as much of the ball as he hoped because of Henderson's non-injury, because I'm assuming that's part of the reason he's gone, because he thinks Henderson's crocked. If they eat off of each other, and Ollie Gordon could easily be number 2 here, but I think the 1A, 1B for the Buckeyes is fantastic. But why I prefer Henderson is he has the ability to punch through gaps. He's not a bulldozer, but he's got the speed and burst to get to the outside as well. He's not afraid to get to the outside, and they use him a lot to get to the outside. It's just he's got that home run ability. If he can get out, he is gone. Whereas I think of the top of these running backs, his explosiveness and suddenness is the greatest. He is also the most injury prone, and it is exactly like J.K. Dobbins. It is, even though Dobbins wasn't particularly injured at Ohio State, what's happened to him in the NFL is tragic. But these things happen, and I just think Henderson is so made of biscuit that I'm still hanging on to I really like him, as opposed to I shouldn't have him here because I know he's going to get broken.
Yeah, and to be fair, that rookie year from him was exceptional. Over 1,200 yards, 15 touchdowns, and another 5 or 6 in the air, I believe it was. But yeah, long-term durability, overall injury concerns. He's missed time in the last 2 seasons is of course a concern. But you are right. He is a big play waiting to happen. He is, as you say, one of the most dynamic running backs in this draft class if he stays fit. I don't like his lack of when he does go through the middle and when he does make contact with a defender, he doesn't often break away. It's one of the not concerns, but it's not an aspect of his play that he looks at, because he hasn't got that physicality, so he can't bulldoze through and he can't get those yards after contact if he is going down the middle. He is a breakout on the outside, find that gap, make a man miss, and he's gone.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, I mentioned Ollie Gordon, Oklahoma State. These three guys are all really, really good running backs, and Ollie Gordon is built like a tight end.
I mean, Ollie Gordon is a specimen, and he is the 6'2", 225 pounds, but so he is built. He's a unit. He is what you want to see in a bell cow running back, but he is quick. He is deceptively quick. I think he's got an unofficial 4.445 40-yard dash, which for a guy who's 6'2", 225 pounds is nothing to scoff at. And that, I mean, the fact that he has that and the fact that he's his size, he will make a defender miss quite as easily downfield as he would do breaking through and powering through a defender.
Yep.
He's got the lower body strength that his legs are always driving. If he's got 3 defenders on him, his legs are still driving and he's still pushing for those extra yardage, especially when he's in the backfield. It's not often that he will lose yardages, because even if he gets stuffed in the backfield, he will drive and push forward to try and make up that ground that he has potentially lost. And I love the vision and the patience that he has in the backfield. He will, despite being a guy his size, you would expect to see him just barge through someone. He has got real patience and vision to look for the right gap, the right blocks, and exploit them and wait for those gaps to open up. Now, on the flip side of that, he can be too patient at times. If the gap isn't created by the offensive lineman, or if he doesn't have the opportunity to bounce outside, he will just sit in the backfield. And that is obviously a concern, especially at the next level, because he's not going to have the time that he does now at the college level in the NFL level as he does now at the college level. But it's a minute thing for me. He is very close. Any of these 4, potentially even 5 guys could be my number one. It's just Austin Jeanty is there at the moment, but they're all exceptionally close. The other thing I do like about Gordon, even though he is a bigger guy, he has really good hands. Now, obviously, a lot like Judkins, he is more of a dump-off type of running back. I don't think you're going to design pass plays for him specifically outside of a dump and run or an escape valve for his quarterback. But he has good hands and he has shown good production. Like in particular last season, his sophomore year, he caught 39 receptions for 330 yards. So he can be that outlet if needs be. And he does not lose the ball. He's got exceptional ball security, 2 fumbles and 285 carries is in his career. Last year, 285 carries last year.
That's big.
Yeah.
That's big. Any character concerns, Ash, after the DUI?
Yeah, there's always going to be those concerns. I think it will potentially have an impact on him. If it all depends on the NFL level from a draft point of view, it all depends on how he interviews. We know that they have the interviews and the visits to these colleges, and obviously on draft day they sit down with a wide array of NFL teams. But whenever you see a DUI, whenever you see any sort of infraction on a player, there is always going to be concerns on his attitude and how he'll handle himself. What will he be like when he's at the NFL level? It's always a concern, and it does unfortunately impact on his overall ranking. The other thing that I just quickly want to touch on for him is Oklahoma State don't run a pro-style offense. So when Gordon does get to the NFL, whatever team he lands on, he is going to need a little bit of time, hopefully just in the off season, to work on the plays that you will expect to see at the NFL level. That is another hindrance for him.
Yeah, he's going to need he's going to need to go somewhere like New Orleans where they've got an Alvin Kamara, so he can slowly get in.
Yeah, maybe sitting behind someone, being a 1B or a 2 for a year is potentially the best thing for him. Or a basic offense, which, let's be real, we don't really see that in the NFL anymore, do we? So that's just not going to happen.
Okay, right. You said 5 names, Ash. Do you have a fifth name you want to mention?
Yeah, Amarion Hampton from North Carolina is another guy. I won't go into too much detail because I do want to move on to the wide receivers, but he is right up there near the top for me. And as I say, it's a shake-up between these 5 guys. Any one of them could be RB1 in 6 months' time, let alone a year's time.
Okay, nice. Right, wide receivers. I asked you about the running backs. So is there anyone in this class that you would have? Like, where would they have gone in last year's draft, essentially? Obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr., would he have been your one regardless?
Yes, I think he still would be. He would still be my one overall. But there's 2 guys that will push the rest of them, in my opinion.
Okay, so Malik Neighbors, would any of these guys gone above Malik Neighbors?
2 of them would for me at this present moment.
What about Roma Dunze?
Probably still 2. My third guy is, I'm probably being a bit too harsh on him, and obviously you'll understand why when we get there, but it's probably still just my top 2 at the moment above a Dunze.
And then finally, obviously, first round, we're talking NFL now. Xavier Worthy, Smoke, my guy, went 32. I'm yet to draft him anywhere. I do not have a single Xavier. Yeah, which is terrible because if he goes off, I will be devastated.
Yeah.
So I think this isn't a humble brag, Ash, but wasn't he? I'm thinking sure he was in my team when I beat you in the final of the 5-yard showdown or whatever it was.
Yes, yeah, he was. Yeah, he was in your
I
team.
thought so. Mm-hmm. Shout out to the people who won that. Just me. So yeah, okay. Let's talk about number 3 then. We've got Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State, where they just seem to 3D print these guys. You go back. Oh God! When was the last time they didn't have a top wide receiver at Ohio State? I mean, Egbuka was there when Garrett Wilson was there, when Chris Olave was there, when Marvin Harrison was there, when Jackson Smith and Jigba was there. Of those recent Buckeye wide receivers we've seen, where does Egbuka slot in for you?
That is a tough question. I would say at the moment, probably around where I have him in my overall rankings in the draft, maybe 3 or 4. I think Olave and Smith and Jigba for me, I preferred them overall. And obviously, yeah, I don't know. I'm overcritical with him for a number of reasons that we will obviously get onto. I want to try and I just want to see a bit more from him this year, and it's really the talent's there. The talent's been there since he walked through the door.
Yep.
But there's just a number of factors for me that are concerns, and probably because I watch Ohio State, they're more noticeable, and I see them more than I do with other wide receivers.
Yep. Okay, come on then.
His injuries.
Yeah, that's the big one for me. His injuries. Yeah. We talked about it with Travion Henderson, and he, as you say, his talent is there, and he's shown out when playing with other talent. That's the big thing for me. You know, you get these receivers where they have ginormous years in college, but there is nobody else. Whereas an Ohio State wide receiver who shows out has other people around him. And when one of those years was when you're playing with Marvin Harrison Jr., it means more.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's his sophomore year. So 2022 season, he was lights out. He was exceptional. And he pushed Marvin Harrison all the way. And yeah, Ohio State's a different beast for wide receivers. You've got to be an exceptional wide receiver to make a name for yourself at Ohio State, as we've seen in the past. And Egbuka's got that. There's absolutely no denying that he's got that. The concerns for me, obviously this year, 2023, he played through an ankle injury for the end of the season, and then he missed games. He missed a lot of games because of that. I think 4 or 5 in the end he missed games because of leg and ankle injuries. He missed time in his freshman year because of injuries. He missed time in his sophomore year. Not as many. He only missed 1 game in his big season, I think. He played 13. He missed 1 game. But it's there. There's always that concern. And for a guy his size as well, he's 6'1", 205 pounds, and he's not a slender frame, but he's not a built wide receiver. So the longevity for him with the injuries that he's already had, it does concern me. The other thing that concerns me is the deep ball speed, the big play speed isn't really there. He's quick and he's explosive off the line, but his vertical speed, I just don't think we're going to see that big playability that you want from the top guys. Now, on the flip side, the pros for him, as I said, he's probably one of the best route runners in the class. Yep. He's strong in all of the aspects of route running, and he's clever. He's a really, really smart just guy in general. On the field, he's able to read the defenses. He exploits them. He knows all of his routes. But and off the field, he's also just an incredibly smart man. You listen to his interviews. Just go and listen to 2 or 3 of his interviews, and you'll see he has just an overall understanding of the football game in general. The sort of thing that you expect to see from a quarterback. That sort of knowledge of the game. And that only enhances the way that he plays, because he doesn't only read his assignment and the guy in front of him, but he can also see and read what's going on around him across the field, what his quarterback may be thinking, what the defense is thinking. And that allows him to make these plays and yards after catch, run after catch ability. It just all adds to that, and he creates separation off the line with with his feet and his timings. It all comes down to his football IQ and his intelligence. I think that is an underappreciated characteristic for any footballer, but for wide receivers in particular.
Yeah, I think having him at 3's exactly where I'd have him right now. I think if he has a big year, there's a chance he overtakes number 2 for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't see how. I think number 1's locked in. I think everybody who has any inkling towards college football last year would know Marvin Harrison, and anybody who has any inkling towards college football this year know who's Luther Burden is. He is the wide receiver this year, and if he plays for Missouri, which again isn't potentially the best place to play, although they are sneaky good at churning out NFL talent. Every year they have people who come out from their team, and they're not a terrible team, although if he was somewhere else, potentially better. But he, for me, is the best wide receiver in this class, and I can't see anybody else having an extremely good year going past that, even if he just has an average Burden year for me. Yeah,
he's got to have a disaster for him not to be the number 1 wide receiver in this draft class. And to be honest, the number 1 weapon in this draft class overall, I think what Burden has shown and the type of player that he is in the conversation for just the top overall player in this draft class on offense and defense. I think we haven't, as you say, Missouri always churn out NFL ready players despite them being, I don't want to say an average college, because that's not the case. They are a good program, but they're not one of the top programs that you expect to see this caliber of player at. And Burden is this caliber of player. I think we're looking at an elite potential, an elite level wide receiver at the next stage. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't concerns. There's always concerns. No one is ready and it instantly. But they are minute details for me. I had to search for these issues with him. One of those is his route running tree. He does rely very heavily on simple go routes, which is for those that don't know, is obviously just straight line and a potential fade in there, or a straight line go routes. He doesn't have a fully developed route running tree that he will need at the next level. Now that's again because it probably comes down to the fact that he's playing on Missouri and their offense is maybe not as complex as that you would see at Alabama, at Ohio State, or Georgia. And it's just something to be considerate of when he takes that next level. He'll need to add those into his game, and he hasn't faced a lot of press man coverage, which obviously we know is a factor at the NFL level that he'll need to be mindful of, and he'll need to learn once he hits that NFL level. I think press man coverage is about 30% of the time for the most NFL defenses. So again, obviously, it's not a massive concern, but it's just something that he doesn't come up against very much. And when he does, he just looks a bit apprehensive and doesn't have a complete understanding of that coverage.
Yeah, I think. Excuse me. I think it is though partly to do with his size. He's one of these new. I don't want to say new age wide receivers. He's much smaller than our number 2, Terratara McMillan. They are completely opposite ends of the wide receiver spectrum. I think Luther Burden's 5'9", 5'9"-ish, 5'10".
Luther Burden, he's 5'11".
Okay, so he's going to come in at 5'9". Then that's
Sorry, yeah. So yeah, he's probably like 5'9", 5'10" in reality, and he is recorded as 5'11".
Yeah, and I think it's going to be, what is he? He's lightweight as well, isn't he? He's between 165 to 180, something like that.
He usually darts between there. He at one point apparently he weighed in at 200. I don't believe that for a second.
After Christmas.
I don't know where that 200 was on this guy. It's just not. It's just not possible. But yeah, 165, 180 is in theory where you would expect to see him.
Yeah, but Luther Burden's game is all yards after the catch. It's to get the ball in his hands and hasta la vista. Like, he makes people miss. He can turn on a dime. His athleticism with the ball in the hand is scary, and that is how he's built his game. There's, he's not a big go up and, like, don't get me wrong, he can go up and get it. He can climb a ladder, and considering he is on the smaller end for a wide receiver, his wingspan's it is big. And when I mean big, it's where he can win the ball big, not the fact he's got really long arms or anything like that. But he can go up, and there is a large area in which he can win the ball. But his game is just yak. He is a ball in hands, go get him, tiger. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everything you said there is all the pros I have about him. He's explosive off the line. He consistently wins against secondary off the line of scrimmage, and he's created the separation that he needs. That he doesn't have to do. So he doesn't need contested catches because he's gone. Yeah. As long as the quarterback gets the ball in his hands, this kid is gone. He is making a defender miss. He's juking them. He's spinning them. He's just outright speeding them. And yeah, he's gone. It's a home run here.
Yeah, his next level
is the opposite.
Yes. Yeah, Burden's it's 0 to 60 and then 60 to 150 is instant. Yeah. The next guy needs a few more gears, but is a completely different footballer. So Teratoa McMillan, T-Mac, I think he likes to go by, which is so much easier for us.
Absolutely.
Plays at Arizona. He is, I remember last year, Tom, former 5 Yard College host, if you don't remember those good old days, he messaged me and he said, Stocks, he said, who's your favorite big receiver in this draft class? And I was like, he said, obviously not Marvin Harrison. And I said, I don't really know. Like, there isn't really anybody that is that the big X outside elite guy. And this year we have that big elite X outside guy. You just throw the ball up and this guy is going to catch it because he's like a jumbo jet up there.
Yeah, he is, as you say, elite size for the X of receiver position, 6'5", 2. He's listed as 210. I think he's probably anywhere between 210 and 225 potentially, but it's all muscle. And obviously, yeah, his strengths are he's tall, obviously, so he's got that jump. He's got that jump, and he can outreach people. And his catch radius is absolutely ridiculous, which you expect from a guy that's 6'5", but even more so. Like, if this guy gets up in the air, not many defenders are ever beating him to the ball. He has that elite catch radius. He rarely loses the ball when it does come to him. He's had 5 drops in 211 targets in his career. That is exceptional numbers for a wide receiver at any level, not just college level. Like, if the ball gets to him, he is catching that ball. Like, that's just the way it goes. He is a really, really good route runner. In comparison, that's where I said Burden obviously lacks, is his route running ability. McMillan's route running is up there with Egbuka. Like, he will complete his routes. He will change the pace of his routes to allow him to free himself from his defenders, because he doesn't have that top level speed to beat a defender with. But he'll change it up. He'll change gears. He'll slow down. He'll speed up when needs be. And he's a smart route runner that he uses that to his advantage, and then obviously his size as well. Obviously, a couple of concerns. Like I say, he doesn't have that top end speed. When he does break away, he is regularly caught from behind. He's not often going to get that home run, unfortunately, because he just doesn't have that top end speed that you see from a cornerback or a Burden or an Egbuka. Like, they're going to catch him, unfortunately, a lot of the time when they're downfield.
Yep.
But that's not what you want from him in your game. And the other issue, the other minute detail that I've seen in his play on the tape, is that he does play tall at the line of scrimmage, and obviously he's a tall man anyway. And when he plays tall, he allows himself to be exploited. So he allows a secondary, a cornerback or a safety, whoever may be on him at the line of scrimmage, to put the press on and just disrupt his run. And then obviously, because he's not got that speed to recover, he loses the timings on his runs. And obviously he's at Arizona, again, a good program, but not a great program, with the quarterback who's his like high school friend. He's not the best quarterback. I can't unfortunately remember his name off the top of my head. So when he is disrupted in his routes by a defender, the play is sometimes already dead by that point, and that's just because he plays a little too high and he allows himself to be exploited, and a defender will get under his pads and give him a jab and stop his run and his momentum.
Yeah, I really like Teratoa. I think he's going to be excellent at the next level, and I think.
Yeah, I mean, he's. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think he's one of those guys where he has the potential to muscle his way in, even if he does if he gets the JSN treatment where he goes to a Seattle where there's receivers above him in the pecking order. I think because he's got that enormous wingspan, he is a red zone threat the moment he touches down in whichever franchise he goes to, regardless of whether he's a 1, 2, or 3. He will be out there in 3 receiver sets because he will be their jump ball guy. He'll be out there in red zone packages because he's their jump ball guy. And he has the weapons to push people out of his way in order to improve his roster position. So he will be relevant the moment he touches down in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously from a fantasy value, you would expect to see instant reward from that because of that. He's going to, even just from touchdowns, he may not have the yardage at the next level, but he's just going to have those touchdowns. He's going to, as you say, be that red zone threat.
Exactly. Right, Ash, let's quickly run through this tight end because that's all there is. There's one.
Yeah. There's one that I want to talk about, but there are certainly more that we'll mention at the end of the pod. But Colston Loveland from Michigan is the clear number one in this draft class at the moment, and probably the only one worth mentioning as this is the guy you need to look at the moment. The reason for that is size. He is 6'5", 245 pounds, but he is also incredibly athletic for a tight end of that size, which then creates a ridiculous mismatch against secondaries. You look at him and you expect him to be a blocking on-line type of tight end. He is not that by any means. This is a receiving tight end at 6'5", 245 pounds, which is a rare thing. It's a rare thing to see, but he possesses the strength to outmuscle defenders, but then also the quick feet and body control to make those cuts and turns on his routes, and in a fluid motion. Again, something you don't expect to see from a tight end of this size. And he's got good hands, and of course he performs well in contested catches, which you absolutely expect to see. And I think the mismatch against secondaries in particular and linebackers is what makes this guy so fun to watch and gives him that value at the NFL level. The work and the cons that I do have at the moment for him is around the blocking aspect of the game in particular. His hand technique is not great when it comes to the blocking game against D linemen in particular. Again, he tends to be overpowered, not because of his strength and size, but because of his hand placement. He gets out leveraged and outmaneuvered because he's putting his hands in the wrong place and he's making it easy for a defensive lineman to pop up, move him out of the way, and they're through the gap. And of course, it gets out leveraged as well because, like McMillan on the wide receiver front, Loveland plays high on the line of scrimmage. And because of that, especially when you're up against a linebacker or an edge rusher or a lineman, if you play too high, they're getting underneath your pads and they're out leveraging you and moving you out of the way with ease. You can't recover when you're off balance. Like, you could be the strongest man in the world. If someone off balances you and pushes you, they're just going to move around like a rag doll. They're concerns I have, and his route running is good, but he does struggle with separation, and that probably does come back to the fact that he's a big guy. But he's that good in the contested catch front. I don't think the separation is that much of an issue at the next level.
Do you think the loss of Jim Harbaugh and also JJ McCarthy is going to play on his performance this year?
I hope so. From an Ohio point of view, I don't know. It's really difficult to tell with obviously Harbaugh and McCarthy going. I think he is good enough to cater for that. I don't think it will have a massive impact on him personally. It remains to be seen what this Michigan offense is going to look like as a whole this year. There's such a question mark because it's such a drastic change for them this year. Not only have they lost their starting quarterback, but they've lost a man that's been at the helm for years and has guided them to national titles and being a consistent force. I don't want to say rebuild because it's not rebuild by any stretch of the imagination, but it is certainly a question mark and something you do have to consider. But I think Loveland is good enough to cater for that in his personal game.
Perfect. Excellent stuff. We have an overall top 5. It was Ash's, but it turns out to be both of ours, as I said when I messaged up. So we've got Luther Burden 1, Terratore McMillan or T-Mac at 2, Ashton Genty at 3, Quinshon Judkins at 4, and then Travion Henderson at 5. This is all subject to change, Rush Nation. Like the weather, we literally have no idea what is going on. So we are a year out and we're just spitballing, trying to break up fantasy draft season. So
I kept Henderson in there for you as well. I would have had Gordon at 5, obviously, because he's my number 3. But I thought it was only fair that if it's an overall 5, we put Henderson in there.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't swap it round to put Henderson above a Judkins because I appreciate the work you've put in, Ash. Well, we should mention Travis Hunter. I know I said Travis Hunter earlier. I meant Jordan Travis when we were talking about FSU quarterbacks. We should mention Travis Hunter, the absolute anomaly that is the cornerback wide receiver at Colorado, right? This guy was he the number 1 rated player when he came out of high school in the entire class?
He was, and he obviously created a little bit of a stir going to Jackson State under Sanders, but of course moved to Colorado with him. Yeah, this guy is a freak. Like, we see two-way players in college all the time. It's not unheard of. It's a normal thing to do.
No, but you say that. We see them, but we don't hear about them.
No, we don't hear about them. No, they're what you see at, like, it's special team level at the NFL. Like, there's two-way guys. They're adequate at both. They do both for a program. Travis Hunter is an elite cornerback and bordering on an elite wide receiver. Like, this guy is a freak, as you said. Like, I think at the next level, the focus is going to be cornerback, and I think he's going to be, if he has his way, he plays cornerback and wide receiver. He plays every down on both sides of the ball. That's not going to happen at the NFL level. It's not possible. I think he's going to be almost forced into play cornerback because that is probably his strength overall. But I've got to put him as a wild card because there are going to be times wherever he lands that he's going to have an impact as a wide receiver on the offense, and he'll make plays. Like, he is an exceptional athlete. It's weird. I can't remember the last time I've seen anything like it at this high caliber.
Do you know what I think? Right, I think it's going to come to the end of the season, and he might not have played as much wide receiver, or he might play more wide receiver, and I think it will come to draft time-ish, and he will just say, I want to play this. I don't think they'll force him to play corner, because if he turned around and said, I want to be a wide receiver, he would get drafted as a wide receiver. I think it solely depends on what he fancies doing in the next level, because he is so good. He has the choice. I don't think he can be shoehorned, and I think the Deion Sanders thing as well, of having him in his corner. Mm-hmm. I think it's just this is my boat, and I'm going to go whichever way I want the Alls to take me. There is no way anybody's telling him he's playing corner if he doesn't want to.
No, by that I meant he'll have to make a decision on which he wants to go for. I don't think an NFL team are going to allow him allow him to play both ways full time. I don't see it being possible at the NFL.
No, because you become financial property, don't you? And they don't want that being hurt with their investment into draft capital and paying him out. That was fun, Ash. It was nice to be back in the booth together. I say booth, if you are watching. I'm stuck in my garage because my wife has some friends over, so I had to find myself a small corner of the habitat. But yeah, it's we will definitely do this again. This is not going to be the last time you and I chat about football, because it has stoked the internal fires. What I am going to try and do, Ash, before we leave, is I'm going to try and flip to 5 Yard College so we can get the college outro. If it doesn't work, Rush Nation, this has been a blast. I'm not going to do the outro line until we get there, because I want it all to work seamlessly. But, Ash, is there anything else you want to mention before we get out of here?
No, not really. I mean, as I said at the start of the show, I could give you another 30 guys to pay attention for, like in the upcoming season and in the draft class. There's a lot of names that we haven't spoken about that will be spoken about throughout the year. And I would just recommend any Rush listeners that don't pay too much attention to college, if you have the time, absolutely go and watch college, because it's a whole nother level, and it's such an enjoyable thing to see. There's so many different schools, there's so many different programs, players. Yeah, it's a whole different kettle of fish, a whole new world, and that's why I love it so much.
Yeah, it's a bit more tricky nowadays to watch college football. I mean, it is on YouTube a lot and stuff like that, but the content is out there. You just unfortunately have to go and find it. In my true professionalism, Ash, I didn't see any of the comments that came in. A lot of them were from Murph talking about too much Sakai talk, not enough Gator talk. Chomp chomp, let's do the swamp thing. Something about Graham Mertz being quarterback one. Beck's washed. When was the last time Georgia had a top QB? Well, Stetson Bennett did it twice and was pretty good. I know he is a backup in the NFL now, but... So, Murph, I apologise for missing all of your content. And then finally, Tom chimed in, Ash, and said he misses that beautiful mush. I'm assuming he's talking about you. I'm going to say it was about me. But hey, either way, Tom managed to get in and have a watch, which was good, because we both missed that guy. And he even sent me a picture of himself wearing the famous Trey Lance Bison jersey the other day, which was good to see. I thought it was signed, but it wasn't. That must have been the Zach Wilson one he had behind him in the frame, which... Who knows if that's still there or not, but hey, there we go. Right, Rush Nation, that is going to do it for today's show. Ash, thank you so much for coming on, mate. Appreciate your time, and it was great to chat. But, Rush Nation, until next week, don't forget, keep rushing.